This looks really good, by the way. Like, where did you? This is really good. It is good to be back under better circumstances. You know, people sometimes don't appreciate. You had Idalia in 2023, and then you had Debbie, which no one even talks about, in 24. Then you had after that, like a month later, Helene. You guys didn't get Milton as bad, but like certainly the Idalia, Debbie, Helene. I mean, that was 13 months, I think. You know, to get three of those, you know, was really, a big deal, and I know it was very difficult. But I'll tell you, people here really did a good job persevering, and we're here to help with that effort to continue. So Christmas is come and gone, but this is the Florida version of Santa Claus showing up with some money for you guys, and I'm happy to do that. I do have Secretary of Commerce Alex Kelly here. We've got folks really from throughout our Big Bend and North Central Florida counties that were impacted by these storms. They kind of cut almost the same path, many of them, and so they're going to be happy to be able to get recognized with a lot of different things. And I did see one of them. You know, I saw Hamilton County. You know, this is America 250 this year, 2026, and we are doing things to commemorate that in Florida. Now, we weren't even a part of that 250 to start. We were a Spanish colony at the time, so we were not one of the original 13 colonies. We didn't become a state until decades later, but nevertheless, you know, we feel like we're the state that best exemplifies the spirit of 76, and so we're really going forward and doing that. And we're bringing, for the counties named after founding fathers, we're bringing statues there. I've already done Franklin in Franklin County. We did Jefferson in Jefferson County. I've got Hamilton coming for Hamilton County. They know it's coming. Madison for Madison County. We're doing that. I've got a beautiful George Washington we got from Mount Vernon. Put it in the state capitol. When you go in, you see it. But we're also doing a replica of that in Washington County. So stay tuned for that. But then we're also doing other ones throughout the state. We got Monroe down in the Florida Keys. We've got, and then other people that have exemplified, you know, America 250 throughout the years who may not have been a part of that. So, you know, I know we're bringing one of President Reagan down at Florida International University. I've got Calvin Coolidge coming down, like, you know, it's just somebody you guys more people should know about Calvin Coolidge. Really great president. And other things like that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So some of you guys I'll be seeing this spring on that. But now to the business at hand. You know, we've worked really hard, even apart from hurricanes, on supporting rural Florida. Rural's very important to the lifeblood and the backbone and the culture of our state. I don't need to do rural to get elected. Like I didn't need to ever come, right? Seriously, there's so many people in Miami. I win that by 10 points. I win this, I win that. You could never do rural and still get elected just because of how big some of these other populations are. But that wouldn't be the right thing to do. And so I was the first governor to do public events in all 67 counties. And I definitely would come bearing gifts on all those. So I'm not just showing up, popping off and leaving. I'm bringing things. And so we've brought a lot of support for rural communities throughout the years. And yes, on the back, we've done a lot on the hurricanes already. We're going to continue to do more because I say at every major hurricane, there's a lot of stuff we got to do, safety, get the power back on, do that. But then there's some things that just take, you know, it's like a major storm happens. It's not something that you can just get over in 2 weeks. So we said we're in it for the long haul. But we've been able to do a lot with our Rural Infrastructure Fund, with our Job Growth Grant Fund. We have a rural infrastructure program that we work very closely with Senator Albritton, our president of the Florida Senate, on. Small county outreach programs we've done. We've really maxed out our efforts to be able to assist. And so I think it's really important, and I think it's important to the well-being of the state. And then, oh, by the way, I mean, like when you show up, people appreciate it. You know, we have this thing because we're the only ones really leading on the immigration enforcement. So we've got a deportation depot in Baker County, close to Jacksonville. And we were there earlier this week because Just our Operation Tidal Wave has 10,000 additional apprehensions. That's apart from what the feds are doing. That's their primary role. We're supplementing. And then total with local, we've got almost 20,000. No other state's even close on that. But when we set up that facility to help the processing before the federal government could take them back to their home country, people are like, oh, Governor, you know, Baker County, did you check with them? Are they going to be upset that you're putting this here? And I was like, well, you know, honestly, I didn't check, but, you know, I got 91% of the vote here, so I think they're probably going to be okay with it, right? I think they knew what they were getting when they voted back then. But it just shows you, you know, when you show up and you do things, nobody appreciates more than the smaller counties and rural. I'll tell you, nobody. I could bring $100 million to Miami. It's like shrug your shoulders, right? Or Tampa or something. Not that they don't appreciate, but like it's not the same as rural in terms of what they appreciate. So just notice that I'm happy to do it, but I also know that it is appreciated. People have been very grateful for that. So today, you know, we've got a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing. And so I'm going to go through all this. And so listen, I don't have, usually we bring these mock checks and hand them out. There's too many awards. I can't do all these checks. I'd be taking pictures, you know, until dinner time, and I can't. I got to get back. I got meetings I got to get to. So we've got a lot. And these are all really focused on helping those areas in particular that had to deal with some of these hurricanes in recent years. So $36 million in award to Taylor County through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery and from our Rural Infrastructure Fund. So Perry, $12 million for a new parallel treatment train. $8.5 million for replace current wastewater infrastructure, install modern equipment. $4.5 million to create a resilient independent water source. All these different things, huge for Perry. Taylor County Commissioners, $1 million for residential road in Steinhatchee. $4.9 million. Yeah. $4.9 million for Taylor County Special Needs Emergency Shelter. Now, hopefully you don't need that, but if you need it, then you got to have it, right? $300,000 for determine the best location in Steinhatchee for the construction of critically needed infrastructure for a commercial seafood offload, processing, and distribution facility. So we're going to the Kathy's Crab Shack after this. We're going to put out something. I've never seen bigger stone crab claws than I've seen here. Massive stone crab. I mean, just unbelievable, some of the stuff. And so this is a really great place to be able to do that. $4.4 million to Doctors Memorial Hospital to install whole facility emergency power system, replace the phone and communication system, and modernize the facility's water treatment system. We're also awarding $4.5 million to the Big Bend Water Authority to repair and replace critical water mains in Steinhatchee. $3.2 million to Jackson County. These funds will be adding a new well, pumping equipment, and water storage system. And then we're also doing Community Development Block Grant Infrastructure Repair Program additional awards. 2 awards to Cedar Key Water and Sewer District. Yeah, you guys need that. $7.3 million to construct and harden the Cedar Key Water and Sewer District potable water system, and $4.1 million to harden the Cedar Key Water and Sewer District wastewater treatment facility. $2.5 million to the city of Carabel to repair damages and harden the sanitary sewer collection and treatment system. $7 million to the city of Gretna, rehabilitate and upgrade city's production wells. $4.1 million, city of Monticello, and that's where we brought the Jefferson statue right there. Beautiful statue. To rehabilitate or replace deteriorated lift stations and force mains, install permanent standby generators at critical sites, elevate and harden electrical and mechanical components, and integrate systems monitoring to improve storm response. If the water is beneath and it's up, it's fine. When the water gets it, then it totally messes it up. So I like elevate on those things. I think it's been very effective where we've done it. $25 million, City of Port St. Joe, to rebuild and strengthen the wastewater treatment facility. $1.2 million, Gilchrist County, updated drainage systems. $1.2 million, Hamilton County, restore and provide improvements to the sheltering facility in Hamilton County. $1.3 million, Lafayette County, restore and harden the drainage and roadway system that serves residents, school buses, agriculture, and emergency vehicles. 2 awards to Levy County, $1.1 million to eliminate a safety hazard, restore essential recreation and tourism access, and increase resiliency. $358,000 to complete a fire emergency response and control project. We also have $1.5 million to Liberty County to improve, repair, and resurface the Bristol boat ramp to ensure safe access, mitigate environmental damages, and enhance long-term resiliency. And, you know, Liberty County is kind of like a wild card when it comes to America 250. I can put anything involving Liberty there. So if you guys have a statue that you want, you know, it's not limited to the name. I mean, anyone. I can probably make that happen as well. You know, it's a lot easier to get these statues because the blue states take down the statues, so that we put them up in Florida. It's a much different mindset, but you know, it's a buyer's market, I guess, for that. $8 million, Madison County Board of County Commissioners to reconstruct the special needs shelter. We also have 2 awards to Cross City. $32 million to build a new wastewater treatment plant. And then $5.7 million to improve and upgrade stormwater drainage by installing elliptical reinforced concrete piping along the streets. $2.8 million to Wakulla County, design and, yeah, there you go, construct a project to line manholes, gravity sewer, and tie-ins. And then we're also awarding $8.5 million to 10 Florida small and rural communities through Rural Infrastructure Fund to assist with critical infrastructure projects and strengthening. And this is like $200,000 to City of Bluntstown, $700,000 to City of Gretna. These are things like roadway extensions, helping with stormwater systems. $1.4 million, City of Mariana. $176,000 Franklin County, $300,000 to Hamilton County for a new building, $100,000 for Madison County for the industrial park plan, Jennings, $300,000, $1.5 million Ponce de Leon for critical upgrades to lift station number 3 and other improvements, $3.5 million to Washington County Board of County Commissioners, and that will provide improve Holmes Valley Road, and will provide access to this new Old Shore project that is happening, which that's going to be absolutely fantastic. Rural Infrastructure Fund supports many projects across rural Florida, and we're proud to be able to do it. We do have $17 million in current year funding, as well as $5 million for Panhandle specific. So this all in, $167.5 million for rural community. And so we'll be doing more. As I said, we have Rural Infrastructure Fund. We have other things to do. I think it was great that we didn't have any hurricanes. I was telling people I had a feeling we were going to not have them, but the minute I say that publicly, man, that you can't. So I never said anything throughout the whole time, but it's just these things tend to go in cycles, and so we were due to have and maybe have a period with no storms, quite frankly. We'll see, but certainly I thought we were due for a year without one. I think that's good for everybody, for a lot of different things, and so we'll see, you know, what happens next year. We'll be ready, but hopefully, you know, we won't have to do it. It just seems, you know, sometimes I don't know why it took the path it did. These storms kind of just like, it was like a magnet or something right in this area, and you got it. And it's tough because doing one is tough, but then, to continue doing it, especially when you fix and then it gets destroyed again. That's like the worst, right? Because it's very demoralizing. So we'll always hope for the best, but we'll prepare to respond if we need to. And I appreciate everybody that's been involved in that, both in the 23 and 2024 hurricane cycles. I'm going to bring up in a minute the Secretary of Commerce, Alex Kelly, who's going to expound on some of these programs. But before I do that, I have an additional announcement that's unrelated to this. So today, I am going to issue a proclamation to convene a special session of the Florida legislature to do redistricting of congressional map in the state of Florida. We are going to do it in the later part of April, partially because there's a Supreme Court decision that's going to affect the validity of some of these districts nationwide, including some of the districts in the state of Florida. We also need to see our population has changed so much in the last 4 or 5 years. We need to get apportioned properly, and people deserve equal representation. And so we look forward to being able to work with the legislature to get that across the finish line. I know there's a lot of people that are excited in both the House and the Senate to be able to do it, so they're going to get their chance to do it. But realistically, you can't do it now if the Supreme Court hasn't ruled. So we've got to give some time for that. And when we're doing it, it's still enough time for the supervisors to get everything in order. So I think it makes the most sense, and we'll be ready to go. With that, I'll bring up Alex Kelly.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you all for being here today. Governor, thank you so much for your leadership and direction regarding all these grants, and not just these grants, but really how we partner with communities throughout the state. You're always talking about infrastructure development, infrastructure readiness, workforce readiness, financial readiness, and overall how that all feeds into quality of life. And you can see here, what an amazing community in Steinhatchee, Taylor County. We're here often, and we love the partnerships that we have here because this is an amazing community. North Florida, all across North Florida, are some amazing communities, and we love the partnerships that we have. And Governor, you got into a lot of the details. I want to spend really most of the time just accentuating that every single one of these grants is a partnership and a relationship with a community, if not several partners, in that community. And you touched on some of these points that every one of these grants, while it's infrastructure focused, it represents how that community ultimately creates jobs, creates opportunities really that where families can know that their children are going to have an opportunity to have a great job in the community they love, maybe own a business in the community they love, and they can stay in the community they love and they cherish so much, and they can have that at home, and they can build their way forward. And that's what these grants do. And every one of these grants too has a fun story behind it. Chuck, from Hamilton County, Chuck, I think too the site visit that we did, taking us through the county. I think Jeff Hendry with the North Florida Economic Development Partnership. Jeff, you're a great steward and guide for so many of these communities. Likewise, your teammate Richard Williams and Opportunity Florida and the Panhandle communities is as well. We don't get this done without those kind of opportunities to visit with all of you. I think back to when we were at Port St. Joe, a year and a half ago, and kind of seeing the vision for where you want to go in terms of elevating shipbuilding, dry dock repair, but you don't do that without having a community that has the infrastructure to support the workforce to fill those jobs, right? So it all ties in. And Antonio, where'd you go, Antonio? There you are. Antonio, I saved you for last. Antonio Jefferson from Gretna, from Gadsden County. It was a month ago that we were at a barren field that you've been working on right off of I-10 in Gadsden County after touring several sites through the county. And that grant, like so many today, the grant that the governor just announced, it's about that story and about that vision. And Governor, I was in these shoes, but they were pretty muddy. Antonio took us to a very, very muddy field, but he created and he showed us this incredible vision for the jobs that are going to be created right there on I-10, that transportation corridor that's going to benefit, frankly speaking, communities to the east and west of Gadsden County. And so, and that meant the world, and that's represented in these grants. And that, so, we really, Thank you, sir. We really thank you for all of you for the partnership. And again, Governor, just thank you for the leadership and just the direction that's clear to really elevate communities and do so in a way that's going to be long-standing and perpetuating. So thank you all very much.
Well, it's a great time of year to be in Florida. I know a lot of people are freezing their tushes off in other parts of the country. We've got a great day today, and I think it's going to be a great winter and spring 2026 for us. So this is a great spot. You know, it's interesting. These storms, when they happen, like I remember Hurricane Michael. I wasn't governor yet, but I was running, and like everyone showed Mexico Beach. It just flattened, but like a lot of people didn't know what Mexico Beach was, and then they're looking at it and they're like, wow, that's nice. So like, you know, they've been able to, people have like invested there because they see, and then I think same with Big Bend. It's like, you know, you get up here and like, this is a great place. Fishing is amazing. All this different stuff is really, really good, and it's kind of, you can visit, and it's like old Florida. It's not South Beach, which, you know, not my cup of tea down there, but it's fine. Like, it's not, you know, whatever. But this is something that is really, you know, how Florida was for, you know, most of our 180-year history, and you know, we still have that here. So I mean, I think it's really good. What they did here is amazing. I mean, I remember seeing this right after, and they have how high the water got on that pole is unbelievable for Helene. You know, Idalia was bad, and Helene was just like off the charts, and so it was unbelievable how high the water went. There was an incredible amount of damage, but this is really, really well done, and I'm glad that you didn't have to mitigate anything this summer, and that we had a good hurricane season. Okay, do we got any questions back there?
Can you kind of talk about why you want to do redistricting now in the middle of the decade when we're going to be using the same data that is used for the current maps?
Well, a couple reasons. One, there's a U.S. Supreme Court case that's likely to say that racial gerrymandering is unconstitutional. We have a couple districts that has been thought that the Voting Rights Act mandates racial gerrymandering. So that's going to force it one way or another. And I don't think it's a question of if they're going to rule, it's a question of what the scope is going to rule. So we're getting out ahead of that. The other thing is while, yes, you have to use that data, our districts are malapportioned. So when you're making judgments about where to draw a line, I think it's totally appropriate to use as a factor how the population may have shifted in a given area. So maybe you draw a line going one way in a county instead of the other. And so I understand you're using that data, but you can also use the updated information to make sure that you're making sensible decisions. Because, you know, the reality is this county won't be split. There's not a lot of people in it. You can do it. We have some counties that are big enough to have 2 congressional districts. Some could have way more than that, right? Miami. And so you got to make these decisions about how you do. Tampa Bay, all this stuff. So I think it's totally appropriate to do that. We've had 10 years of population change in just since COVID, easy, probably even more than that. Honestly, like some people are saying, we have had enough people move. Like, you know, it's like it's a lot. And so I think on both of those bases, we have an ability, not only an ability to do it, but really a duty to do it to ensure fair representation. But I have a very high degree of confidence that at least 1 or 2 of those districts on our current map are going to be implicated by this Supreme Court decision.
Say about the map that your office came up with that we're under right now.
So first of all, to say my office did some, if you look at some of the things in Southeast Florida, that was kind of the legislature wanted to kind of do that. That was not what we had proposed there. So that's first thing. Second thing is it has been viewed as 1965 Voting Rights Act Section 2 requiring the use of race in drawing districts. And so there are certain of those that are considered VRA. I think what the U.S. Supreme Court is going to decide is like, wait a minute, you know, VRA is like no discrimination, but when you're using, then you are discriminating in a different direction, right? And so that was not necessarily up for grabs at the time in 2022. We've had subsequent litigation since then, and the Supreme Court wouldn't have taken this case unless they were willing to reevaluate that. So I think the context is different. I think at that time we didn't have a sound expectation that deviating from that previous understanding would have meant that the map would have been upheld. Now I think you're probably in a situation where the map can't be upheld unless we make some changes.
The Senate could be passing rural renaissance legislation. How important is that in your mind?
Well, look, I think the president of the Senate, Senator Albritton, is a friend of mine. He really is passionate about rural Florida, and he's got a lot of ideas. We've helped him a lot on infrastructure and other things, and so I think he really views it, as a great legacy item. I told him, I said, because he's down there, I mean, in Wauchula, and Hardee County, and I was like, they've never gotten so much money since you've been. I mean, like, he's brought home a lot of support for them, and it's really going to be generational. So, I told them I'm happy to work with them on continuing to move the ball Florida for rural Florida. I think it's important to our state. It's important to the economy. It's important to the culture. It's important to a lot of different things.
And the House is expected to possibly pass property tax, one of their first amendments on property taxes. You said that you don't like what they're doing in the House with their buffet of options. When are you going to release your plan?
So here's the thing. This is going to go on the ballot in November, right? So, first of all, we're working hard to get it right, and there's a lot that goes into it because you got to get it passed, right? So, voters, how are they going to respond when they read this? A lot of voters don't understand the amendments. That's just a fact. I mean, they tell me that. Very smart people tell me they don't understand. So you got to write it in a very clear and concise way where everybody knows, what we're looking to accomplish here. And there's different iterations. You also have to have the structure of it right. You got to get the votes. You got to do all that. So we're doing that. We're working very hard on it. We have worked very hard on it. We've got a lot of great data now to work off of, but we got more work to do. Look, the House is free to do what they want. I mean, I just pointed out if you put multiple possible amendments on the ballot, that means none will pass. Let's just be clear, because you may like this iteration, you may like that. So even though maybe 60% want property tax relief, your view may be different. Then how do you do it, right? And so that's a guaranteed way to kill it. So that's not, if you want to get something to pass, you got to go with one vehicle. I don't think the Senate would put all that stuff on anyways, but you got to go with one vehicle. So that was just my insight on it. And then they also had the idea of giving property tax relief solely to 65 and up, and I rejected that. Part of the reason is if you've had a house for a long time, you get locked in at homestead. It goes up, but not as much, right? So you'll literally have neighborhoods where someone's retired. They've had a house for 20 years. You'll have a family, family of four. The parents are 30, 35, let's say, and their tax basis is way higher than what their neighbors is. And so they're paying maybe 5 times, right, because of the valuation. So this whole thing with property tax, to me, is taxing unrealized gains, basically, because they're saying, oh, your property went up, your property did this. So I think it's created a whole host of problems. It also, we talk about the real estate market being, quote, frozen. People don't want to sell their homes. And a lot of times they'll say they're locked into a lower interest rate. So why would they want to sell? And in particularly if you have elderly who may want to downsize, they don't want to downsize and end up with a higher interest rate, higher whatever. So that makes it harder for young people to have access to good deals on the market. But the tax is a big part of that too. Because if you have a home, you've kind of outgrown it, you're empty nesters, you want to downsize, maybe a young family would want to buy it, you don't want to sell and then end up with a much higher tax basis. Think about this. In 2019, the first year I became governor, local governments in Florida took in $32 billion in property tax revenue. Today it's $56 billion. Now, I don't think it's gone up as much here in this part of Florida, but in some other areas, their budgets have just exploded because they're getting all this revenue. And, we've grown, we've had inflation nationwide. I understand it being higher than 32 for sure, but 56, are you trying to tell me we can't give relief to anybody on the basis of that? And so I think actually if you do property tax in a really bold way, it's going to be the people between 30 and like 60 that are going to benefit the most, because their tax basis usually are going to be higher than people who've been in their homes for longer. That's an inequity in the way we do things. It's an inequity in the market. It's created, I think, an impediment to sales, and there's a whole bunch of things. So we're going to do it. I don't know that it necessarily is something that you do in the regular session either. I mean, we'll see happens. I think there's some value in teeing something up that the voters see they're going up to do this. And then voters can talk to their members about what they want to do. You get into a regular session, it's 60 days. There's things flying all over the place, and things kind of sneak through at the last minute. And it's harder to keep. It's hard for me to keep track of. I mean, I've had things plop on my desk. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Some random legislation no one was talking about. All of a sudden, it gets popped out the last week of session. So that's just kind of how things go. So I do think there's some value in having something, really big, meaningful. And look, I'm just doing this, like, first of all, I'm in public housing right now, so this ain't going. I'm not paying it. But you have people around the state who will consistently tell me that this has been an impediment for them, the property tax. And we got great announcement on homeowners insurance coming up soon for citizens and some of these others, and the filings coming in with reductions, which, people a few years ago thought it wasn't. They thought the whole market was going to tank, and now you're seeing it turn, and not having a storm helps, quite frankly. So we're gonna talk about that. I think people will be pleased with the progress, but the reality is citizens we may have a little bit more control over, but the rest of these are private companies. If I could just say charge everyone $1 a month, I would do it. That's just not how it works, right? But the tax, we totally control the tax. Like, we the people, through our Constitution, can figure this out with the tax. And I just say, this is what people are getting pinched on, are these property taxes. Now, in my budget, I put in money to just give the rural whatever revenue would be lost. Not everyone's very excited about that, but I'm just like, look, I want to get this done. So if I have to do something like that, I'm fine. It's not a lot of money. So that's in my budget. But yeah, this is the thing that I have. And I tell some of the legislators, I was like, we've cut everything at the state level tax. We have no income tax. We now have no tax. The sales tax is exempting all the essentials, including baby items, including disaster preparation, including permanent back to school holiday, all these different things. Second Amendment holiday just ended at the end of the year. That's not permitted yet. I'm working on that. But that was very popular because people are going in and getting ammunition, and they're getting accoutrements, and they're getting firearms without having to pay tax. And I know the shops really appreciated that as well. So we did that. We eliminated the commercial business, the business rent tax, which hurt small business. Totally eliminated. Gone. So it's like, okay, well, at this point, what could we really do on tax to make a difference? And the reality is we are one of, if not the lowest tax state at the state level in America. But at the local level, and it goes in the Constitution, that's why it's got to go on the ballot, this is where people need the relief. And so, I don't have any pride of ownership. This isn't about me. This is about just me as the chief executive, the one that was elected by the entire state in a pretty big margin, that I hear from folks. And so I'm channeling that in a productive way to be able to give people some really meaningful relief. And I think that I think the voters are going to really be interested in that. And I also think you do it because it's the right thing to do. You do it because folks are want relief. But just from a political perspective, if I were running, legislature, Senate, any of these things, I would definitely want to have good property tax on the ballot to be able to get people to be excited about voting. Because you may not get the same turnout we got in 22. People were really excited to vote in 22. It's a different context, different environment. So I think for the legislators to put this on, I think it would be really beneficial for them, because I think they'll be able to juice more turnout for their elections. And that's not the main reason you do it. The main reason is because it's right substantively, but I do think it does have that added bonus on top of it. Yep.
What are you looking for in the next Supreme for justice, particularly as it relates to potentially having a justice that's willing to break from prior court precedents?
Well, I think so. We have a vacancy on the Florida Supreme Court. Justice Kennedy retired and is now working at the University of Florida, running the Hamilton Center, which is an amazing place, by the way. So now I have 6 names on a Judicial Nominating Commission list, and I've got to pick one of those names. Some of the things I look for, I mean, you got to have an understanding of the proper role of a judge. You have to understand the Constitution and how to apply statutes in a constitutionally sound way. But you also have to have courage to be able to do that, knowing that, you know, liberal media may attack you. You may get blowback for doing the right thing, but you got to be willing to do that and rule and not worry about all those other things that may happen. In terms of precedent, I mean, I think you treat precedent with respect, but I also think that if the court has taken wrong turns, particularly constitutionally, the most important thing is to get it right. And we've had a very liberal court before I became governor for a long time. They engaged in a lot of, I would say, judicial somersaults to try to arrive at certain results that they favored politically, and I think it distorted some of the underlying jurisprudence. So I think there is some work to be done there. That's got to come up in the appropriate ways. But one thing I think that they should be doing, you know, Texas Supreme Court just nixed the American Bar Association from being able to be the accreditor for these law schools. And the ABA is like left of the left. I mean, like, it's a very partisan left activist organization. And, you know, they have a right to do that if that's what floats your boat. But they should not play a central role in legal education or the legal profession as if they're some neutral arbiter when they obviously have a very aggressive agenda. So the Texas Supreme Court said the law schools are going to be accredited by the Supreme Court of Texas, and that's how they're going to do it. They should do that at the Florida Supreme Court. They should do the exact same thing that Texas did, and I was really happy to see the Texas Supreme Court leading on that. So fidelity to the Constitution and the law, understanding the proper role of the judiciary and a constitutional system of separated powers, but then also having the backbone and the courage to be able to rule properly, knowing that you may get some brushbacks from partisan people in media, and you just got to be willing to do that. If you let that factor whether you're going to do the right thing, you are not going to end up being successful in any of these positions. You know, you got to realize that if you're over the target, you know, they're going to fire at you. That's just the way it is. Now, the state Supreme Court doesn't get as much blowback as the U.S. Supreme Court, and you look at how some of these justices have been treated over the years, particularly by very partisan media. It's been horrible how they've treated Clarence Thomas, how they've treated Justice Alito, and a lot of times they do fake narratives to try to damage them. I got something there, and it's really been bad. And the thing is, they'll say, Justice Thomas, you know, went on vacation with some wealthy guy. And first of all, I don't think there's anything wrong. They're friends, whatever, so there's nothing wrong. But then they don't talk about Ginsburg doing that 10 times more. So it's like, okay, is it right or not? I mean, what's good for the goose, and that's not what they're doing. They have an agenda. And it started when he had confirmation hearings, when they did horrible treatment, including Biden was a part of that. But then whatever they can do to take pot shots. And, you know, that's why those two guys, you know, they're very excellent jurists because they are very good on the law and Constitution, but they really have strong backbones, and they really stay in there, and, like, you will not cow them into changing who they are. You know, we have this problem with Republicans for many decades. Presidents would put these Republican appointed justices on the Supreme Court, and they would be, oh, it's a conservative, and they'd evolve into something much more liberal. And they have life tenure, so there's really nothing you can do short of impeaching them. And so you do that. So this has always been kind of the fear. Well, they asked Justice Thomas when he first got on the court, like, you know, what's going to happen? Are you going to change? He said, I ain't evolving. I ain't evolving at all. Like, I am what I am, and that's what I'm going to do going forward. So it's been a good run there. And I think our court here will be interesting because when I make this selection, there's 7 members of the court. 6 of the 7 will have been appointed by me. And I think the average age of the justices in that 6-justice of the 5 justices before I do one, I think the average age is something like 46, and they can serve till they're 75. And so some of you will have kids and grandkids that will benefit, I think, from rulings in like 25 years that'll be constitutionally sound. And so that's really important, and that was a big problem in this state for a long time. I think we're in much better stead, but I'm really looking forward to making a strong appointment because I think it can get even better. All right, everybody. God bless you all. Thank you.